Hello, hello, you guys. Welcome back to That's My Personal Business. Today we have Rachel Traxler on the podcast. Welcome, Rachel.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Oh my gosh, thanks so much for being here. I'm so excited. I'm so sorry if you can hear New York just like going full New Yorking all of a sudden. I'm like, it's of course, I swear as soon as I start the podcast, like there's an emergency vehicle straight outside the door.
Oh my goodness. I hear you because my newborn baby is in like the other room and I'm
Oh
just
my
waiting for
gosh.
him to start crying. So I'm like, if you hear that too, so we've got other things in the
It's
background,
okay.
but we'll be good.
We'll be good. I feel like that's just
Life.
like post-pandemic, especially like
Yeah.
navigating the online
People
space. I'm
understand.
like, yeah, we have lives and it's just, it is what it is. But welcome to the podcast. Thank
Yep.
you for being here. For those who don't know you, do you mind giving us a little introduction on yourself?
Yes. So my name is Rachel Traxler. I am a wedding photographer and photography business coach. I'm based in Wisconsin. And yeah, I've been in the wedding industry for 10 years now, which is
Oh my gosh,
crazy. And
amazing.
just, yeah, really fun. It's been really fun to kind of take my photography business, grow that, expand my associate team with that and be able to go from, all the steps and starting, very kind of from square one, working my way from like low budget what clients and low budget weddings and all that stuff, working my way into more premium luxury weddings and trying, like we are going to probably talk today about, elevating and accelerating my client experience and all that, being able to grow that. And now shifting into photography business coaching and podcasting and educating that way. It's been really, really cool to kind of take what I have here and kind of pivot and share, like showcase and spread the love in all different directions.
Yeah, I love that. How long have you been kind of in like the education realm?
I would say fully since like 2019 is when I really
Hmm,
dove in. So,
amazing.
oh my gosh, almost 4 years now.
I know it's one of
What?
those things
That
where
does
I
not.
always say 2019 and I'm like, so last year basically.
Yes. Yeah. It
No.
honestly feels like that, doesn't it?
It really does. I like was talking to someone that I literally hadn't seen since 2019 the other day. And I was like, it's been a while, but like not that bad. And then I was like, oh,
Right.
no, that was 4 years ago.
4 years. What? Yeah. That does not seem or sound or feel right at all.
No, truly. But I'm really excited to talk to you today about I know you're really passionate about like how to elevate and accelerate your client experience. And I feel like what first stuck out to me was the word accelerate because that's not a word that we hear that often in terms of especially like a wedding client experience. So one, I would love to know what that means to you. And I would kind of love to hear about, I'm always so interested to hear about like where people came from when it comes to specific topics that they're really passionate about. Like I would love to hear about kind of how your client experience was in the beginning since you said you've been in business for like 10 years. So I'm sure it's shifted a lot.
Yeah, I love this question, Eden, because I feel like sometimes people think, oh, this is their specialty. They're really good at this. So they've probably always been really good at that, right? Like that's what people kind of think. But a
Mhm.
lot of the time when you dig deeper and talk to people and like talk about their origin story and how things evolved for them over time, a lot of times their zone of genius or something they're really good at, I have found in my personal experience anyways, is something that they actually weren't good at or something that
Yeah, like had to
didn't
learn the
work for
hard way.
them. They had to learn the hard way and they really had to, step up and figure that out for themselves. So a lot of that comes to client experience for me. And I am more of an extrovert. That's kind of my personality. I love, social stuff. So getting along with people has never been an issue for me. I love making people feel invited and comfortable and welcome in any situation. That's just something my friends have always said about me. So I think that is something that came natural to me. But when it came time to taking that and applying it to my business aspect, like when I started my business, I was like, okay, but how do I click the two? Because
Mhm.
everything else is great. Like when we meet in person, I'm like, great, we click, we hit it off. They love me, I love them, all the things. But a lot more goes into running a business and like the communication and especially now everything like online and stuff like that, workflows, communication, and just running a business basically. So it was clicking the two because when I first started, I didn't really have that. And something wasn't clicking where I wasn't really bringing in the types of clients or weddings that I really felt aligned with. And I was like, what's going on? Something's
Mhm.
not right here. Something's not
Mhm.
clicking. Yeah. Or things would happen, situations would happen where this just my personality to take it upon myself to be like, well, that's on me that they didn't do this or they didn't communicate this or
Mm.
this didn't happen. As a service-based provider, I think that's a healthy mindset to have to just assume like, you probably could have done something better to improve that. It's not
I
always the client's fault.
I actually
Mhm.
love that because I think that that's like something I love talking about in this industry is I think people
Yes.
get really upset and put it on the client when they like end up with unideal clients or like something goes wrong. And I always am like, we got to set aside ego a little to acknowledge the fact
Yeah.
that like that person thought they would be a good match with you, which means we weren't specific enough in some realm. I think that's so important to talk
Yes.
about.
Yeah, which essentially is back on you. And I do think
Yeah.
it is a fine line with photographers, especially because we are a business, like we are
Hmm.
business, but it's also an art. It's our art too.
Hmm.
So I think it's really like you were saying with like gotta put the ego aside because a lot of it we attach to emotions and we tend to
Hmm.
take that emotionally because it's like it's our art and
Yeah, it's our
we take it
baby.
emotional. Yeah, like when people ghost us and then they take it to, to Instagram to complain about it. I'm actually like, I want to reach through the screen and be like, you're making yourself look really bad right now because that's on you, like you can take
Yeah.
that upon yourself to fix that. Um, and so that's something that I found things happening for me a lot of my communication maybe wasn't there. I wasn't bringing in the right clients or things would happen where I'd show up to a session. I'd be like, oh, well and then I kind of, I mean, I'm totally guilty of having those feelings. I just
Mhm.
brought it back to myself of, okay, what do I need to do now to fix that? So essentially what I did is I just stripped down my whole business and built it back up from the ground up in terms of my client
Wow.
experience and everything just because I'm like, this isn't working. I got to strip it down and build it back up. So that's where basically my whole, elevate and accelerate method came in to play of how I did that and how I was able to do that and then go from, booking non-ideal clients or lower budget weddings and clients to being able to attract really premium clients and booking higher end luxury weddings and a lot goes into it because I always say client
Mhm.
experience is literally everything you do in your business. It's not just sending a welcome guide. It's not just giving them a good experience in person. It is every single thing you do in your business. Everything falls under client experience. So that's why I love it so much
I
because I do love business.
l Yes, I love the focus you put on the client experience pre-booking because I think that's one thing that, like, we can overlook, not even just as photographers, but, like, small business owners in general, is that, like, we think about client experience and we hear the word client and we assume that's when money is getting exchanged. Like, in our heads, we're like, "Yes, that starts as soon as they pay," when in reality, there's such a gigantic pre-booking client experience that needs just as much attention, I would say. Like, in order for people to feel comfortable with you and like you said, to take yourself from a budget to a high investment offer, you can't just be only serving them once they give you money. Like, you're never gonna book a five-figure job if there's no client experience pre-booking. That's crazy. Why would they hand you 10K to like 10K plus if they haven't had an experience with you yet? I would love to kind of hear what that looked like for you as you like and what you maybe missed or like realized that you needed to improve upon in terms of like the pre-booking, booking, post-booking, because I think again, a lot of people get fixated on that like let me, do my pricing guide. Let me make sure that I'm really good on session. Like, what were the points that you found were really important outside of the obvious ones?
Yeah, I love that because those are the obvious ones. And then people think like, oh, I have a really good client experience because of that.
Mhm.
And I kind of have it broken down into like three little sections here. So when you're looking at my elevate and accelerate method, there's three, just like imagine three circles and they kind of combine together, right? So the first one is the attract and convert. The second one is the connect and nurture. And then the third one is deliver. So those are kind of like the three circles that I have within, and so much falls under each of them. And kind of how we were just talking about the attract and convert one too. So much goes into before a client even comes across you or realizes you or hears about you, because I think it's really important too to remember that we have no idea at what point or when or how a client is going to enter our world, and
Mhm.
that their client experience starts with you the second they hear about you, the second they lay eyes on your social media or they come across your website or they hear someone talk about you. Like that's when their client experience with you starts, and you have no idea when that is. Because
Mhm.
if you think about it, sometimes you have clients come to you and say, I've been following you for years and loved your work. And you're like, oh, like you don't even know who
Yeah.
they are. And it's like, wow, it really opens your eyes to, you just don't know who's watching you and who's in your
Mhm.
world. And so I think that's something to be really cautious about and think about in terms of like creating your content and your online presence and how you are at weddings and how you communicate with people and how you know, what type of content you're posting and how you're talking and treating to people at weddings and all that stuff because you just don't know. And then I always say your client experience starts with them the second that you respond to their initial inquiry form because that's
Mm.
that's your first point of communication with them.
Mhm.
So you have no idea when theirs starts with you, but you know when yours does. So
Oh,
a
I
lot
love
of that
that.
too is like yeah, and so a lot of that attract and, convert that way, a lot of that's on them. Well, a lot of
Mhm.
that's on you prepping, but you don't know what that's gonna look like for them, so you have to
Mhm.
be really cautious about that, like, when it comes to, like, your lead generation strategies and your online presence and all of that stuff, and your website and your funnels and making sure you have, like, call to actions on every single thing that you do
Mhm.
and all that leads people into your world, basically.
I think that's so powerful too when it comes to thinking about the way that we serve our clients when they're in, because I think sometimes we can get really hyper focused on like, okay, book this now, let me book the next one. And like you said, we don't actually know when their client experience is going to start with us. It could be, I'm like, we've all booked a wedding where it's a bridesmaid from like a past wedding, and their client experience
Yes.
started by seeing us on another job. And so if we weren't handling that professionally and amazingly and serving them 100%, that's a lead and potential job gone. And so I think it's so important to not just hyper fixate on like one little aspect of the way that you show up as a business, but to remember that like almost every single way that you show up, even for your clients within their little like client experience, is still expanding into other clients. Because
Mhm.
that's yeah, I'm like, if I really loved a photographer's work and then I saw them on a job at someone else's wedding and it was amazing, I would wanna hire them even more, and if it wasn't amazing, I would be like, "Never mind. I don't care how many call to actions they have on their website, like, not for me."
Yes. Yeah. It's a make or break. It's one of those situations too where all the pieces kind of have to align and they have to fit and they have to make sense too. Because I
Mhm,
think, especially in our industry, a lot of people we cling to like the buzzwords and
mhm.
tend to kind of do what everyone else is doing. It's trendy, instead of actually digging within. You're so good at this, Eden, because you found your own
Oh,
path, you found your own way, you found your own bright brand, your own voice. You are the
thank you.
prime example for this to do that because a lot of people in the industry, they tend to start to sound the same and stuff like
Mhm,
that. And so it's how are you standing out? Because then if someone does come across you or figures watches you at a job or
mhm,
meets you in worse, even worse, meets you in person at their session after they've
mm,
booked and is like,
mhm.
this is not what I thought. This
Yeah,
is not clicking. This doesn't really make sense. That immediately breaks their trust with you and puts them on edge for their entire rest of their experience with you. And I think we have to remember too, when it comes to client experience and all that, that we can do all the right things all the
mhm,
time, all throughout, and it takes one thing to break their trust and make them
mhm,
question and the confidence in us and our service. And so it can be broken that easily. And I
mhm,
think that's why it's really important to stay really true to who you are so it's easier that way, but also build up systems and funnels and
mhm.
workflows on the back end to ensure all of that's, good too.
Yeah, and I love kinda what you touched on of the, like, people complaining on Instagram that they're ghosting or, like, they're getting ghosted, things like that. I think it can almost be trendy to complain about, like, common industry pain points on socials in a way
Mhm.
that we think is, like, going to make people feel more bonded to us, but like you said, it's so easy to break client trust with someone, and so one of the ways that I always like, I see photographers and small business owners do a lot is, like, maybe they're going on vacation or they had a family emergency break up or come up, is, like, instead of individually emailing their clients who that impacts, who would understand because they already have a relationship, they'll, like, post on socials being like, "Hey, I had to, like,
Mhm.
leave the office, like, get back to you soon," and it's like potential clients are seeing that, and all that, like, looks like to them is that you don't handle things one-on-one and you don't serve your clients one-on-one and, like, really prioritize, communication with them, like, that's something to greatly avoid. Don't post on social media when you're, like, maybe taking a step back in some areas, like, handle that one-on-one with your clients.
Yes. Oh, I agree. Oh, I feel like we could talk about that all day too,
Oh my
because I
gosh,
feel like
literally for
that in
hours.
itself is a whole topic. Yeah. And you're so good at that too. So I feel like that's like a whole topic in itself.
Yeah, well, because it's like, again, I can't stress enough. I'm like, for anyone listening, human things happen. Like, I have had to email my clients sometimes and be
Yes.
like, hey, literal family emergency. I'm so sorry. Like, if it's an
Mm.
emergency, please contact my assistant, but like, I'm going to have to step out for a second. But like, they know me, they have a relationship with me, they know I'm a human, they know I'm coming back. Whereas, someone who just found me on Instagram, they don't need to see a post that says, like, hey, I'm taking a step out of the office for a week unexpectedly, TTYL. Like, that's not a great look.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So you threw around a couple words like funnels, CTAs, actually showing up on the shoot, pre-client experience. And for someone that's maybe just wanting to dive into their client experience, right? Like, we who have been working on our client experience, like you said, for like a decade, it's easy for us to be like, here are the like couple dozen touch points that like you want to make sure are taken care of. But that can obviously be overwhelming when you're like first getting started. Maybe right now the only client experience you have is like, a website, pricing guide, contract, sessions. Where do you kind of suggest wedding photographers and just small business owners in general kind of start? Like, where do you start working on your client experience? What are some good points to kind of tackle first before you dive into your client experience as a whole?
I love that question, actually. I think that's a really good question because it's so easy for everyone to get caught up on like the shiny things. I feel like anytime people feel like there's a lull in their business or they're bored, I feel like everyone's like, I'm just gonna get rebranded. I'm gonna rebrand.
Mhm.
I need a new, they need all these things, which don't get me wrong, you guys, is
So
really
important,
important.
but time and place.
Speaking from time and place, because speaking from experience, a mistake I made early in my career is I got branded way too soon, too early, before I knew who I was and my direction and my brand and how it aligned with me and my personality and my
Mm,
approach, my brand promise, how that all clicked together. I didn't have all those foundations before I did the shiny things, if that makes sense.
mhm,
And I know sometimes as you're getting going, that's totally fine. Like we all start somewhere. We need to get some work going. We need to get, some clientele build up, some word of mouth and all that stuff. But I think the most important thing is, I mean, word of mouth is huge, as we know. And so I think all you really need is just somewhat of a portfolio and some word of mouth and just get going somewhere for someone to at least get in contact with you and get
mm,
going. Because I think sometimes people think everything needs to be perfect or they need to have all these things set in place. When in reality, I always ask my students this, like, I think I need to do this. I'm like, is that what's going to bring you in more clients right now? Probably not.
yes.
That's just like a shiny
Mhm,
thing. You need to
mhm,
okay, like if your goal is this, you wanna book this amount of weddings, what's gonna get you to that? Because when you're coming to me and telling me, "Oh, I wanna do this," that's not gonna get you there. You need to focus on income generating
mhm,
activity, what's actually gonna get you your leads in and your inquiries to help you reach, that number of goals you want, whether that's income goal or what number of weddings, whatever that looks like. And so I think if you can just start with building that portfolio, but I'm a huge like fan of communication and workflow
mm,
and having an automated workflow. So when you can
mhm,
have like an automated workflow on the back end, that saves you so much time. And then you can take that time and focus it into building things otherwise. Cause what I did, another mistake that I made was I had to work backwards. Like I said, I had to strip everything down
mm,
and start fresh and work backwards, which is fine. Like we all have our mistakes. We all learn in our certain ways, but I had to come back and almost like go backwards where I did the shiny things first. I wish I would have built the foundation of my business first in terms of my brand, my approach, my brand promise, my email like communication, my workflows, my automations. So in that way, I could focus on lead generation. And I
mhm,
had a funnel that actually, when I did bring in leads and inquiries, I actually had something to funnel them through. Because I think people get
yes.
so focused on lead generation. How do I get more inquiries? How do I get more, weddings? How do I do all these things? And then they try to funnel them in and they don't have anything to funnel them into.
Mhm,
They don't have anything to bring them in. So it's like a kind of a broken system. And then they're
mhm,
wondering why they're not converting their leads. And
mhm.
so I think it's super important to build that foundation first. And I only
Mhm.
say that because I did it backwards, so that's why I wanna tell
Yes.
everybody, do it the opposite way I
Well,
did.
no, truly, I think, like, people get so hung up, like you said, when they're not booking clients at being like, "Well, it's a marketing issue," or it's like, "Let me get a new logo," and it's like, a logo isn't gonna sell a shitty service. Like, it doesn't
Mhm.
matter.
Yeah.
You need to, like, establish what you're gonna bring to the table as a photographer and as an artist and a human and, like, what that is, and then build off of that. Is there maybe, like, a part of your client experience, whether that's pre-booking, during booking, post, whatever, that is almost like your favorite part of your client experience that people wouldn't normally think of as a touch point?
Oh, I love this. Okay, so I know I have my whole, like, inquiry to income process. I have, like, a
Mhm,
course around it. It's my inquiry
mhm,
to income that I love.
mhm,
And I know that so many people don't do. It's, like, very much so customizing things, and I love
mhm,
I love client experience, I love client connection, I love making
mhm,
people feel connected and loved and seen, so I see a lot of people doing the same thing in terms of their communication or the way they're responding, or they're not really using, like, psychology around, like, the way that they're responding and connecting with
mhm,
people, and so that's something that I really love a part of, like, my workflow that way.
mhm,
But then that's just the so I like to break down my workflow into phases. And
mm,
so that's kind of part of my inquiry phase. And then once I convert that into a paid client, then there's like the onboarding phase. And
mm,
then I move into the nurture phase of my workflow. And that's I think the nurture phase is something that a lot of people don't have. They're like, "Wait, what's a nurture sequence or what's the nurture phase of a workflow?" And so that's a hefty part that I think is so critical that a lot of people aren't doing. And then it moves into the delivery phase, like the offboarding
mm,
delivery. So I have kind of
yeah,
4 phases into my workflow that I have.
mhm,
And I have a whole course on just my very first like inquiry to income phase of it. So
mm,
it's
mhm,
hefty, like it's depth,
yeah,
there's a lot of
mhm,
depth to it.
yeah.
But I would say, yeah, like that nurture part too, a lot of people aren't doing.
What would you say, like, is a good way to start nurturing your clients? Like, I know I don't want you to disclose the whole course or anything, but I'm like,
No.
for someone that's like,
Oh
"Oh, yeah,
gosh,
I
no.
don't think about nurturing once they're in," what's, like,
Mhm.
something that they can kind of start doing or paying attention to?
Yeah, this is a great thing too. So it's going to look a little bit different for everybody too, because everyone's ideal clients are a little bit different too.
Mhm.
But having a base idea of thinking about how you can craft your current clients, the clients that you already have
Mm.
booked, instead of focusing on, oh, I want to book more and I want to get more weddings. I want to get more ideal clients, another
Mhm.
buzzword. I want to get more ideal clients, dream
Mhm.
clients. Focus on the ones you do have and how you can craft them into your ideal clients without changing who they are, but just
Mm.
taking what they want to do and expanding their minds on what they think and know that they can do for their wedding, prepping them for their wedding day, and turning them into ideal clients. So that way, maybe you can work together to do things they wouldn't have thought to do, they didn't know they could
Mm.
do. And you're
Mhm.
giving them ideas of, here, we can do this. Now, all of a sudden, you have a dream shoot set up with one of your already clients that you have because you didn't, you are the one that nurtured them into that. And I think that's really, really powerful to educate, prep, and nurture them into your ideal clients without changing who they are at all. That is
Mm.
not the point of that process. It's just expanding their minds, basically.
I am obsessed with that. That's something that I've been talking to some of my coaching clients a lot like about a ton is that like people who aren't in our industry, they don't know what they can do with their weddings because they're not surrounded by weddings
Yes.
24/7 like we are. Like I always tell people because they're like, well, I'm just not working with my ideal client. Like, for example, let's say I have one coaching client and she really wants like an unposed approach. She really like just wants to like shoot them doing what they do best, like really natural. And she booked this session where one, they're not from the mountains. They were from like Texas and they went up into the snowy mountains in like a suit and tie and dress. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but she was like, it was so unnatural. It was so uncomfortable. And I was like, this is where this pre client or like pre session workflow and, like you said, nurture really needs to come into play because those people probably didn't even realize that they don't have to
No
do that.
clue.
That's the classic approach. But because they're not in our industry, it's not second nature. They're not even aware that they can literally do whatever they want. And so that really, again, going back to the beginning of like, that kind of falls on us to like give them that insight into what a dream session wedding looks like for us so that they can be like, oh my gosh, I would love to do that. I just didn't even know that it was an option.
100%. It's like it's one of those things we're so close to our zone of genius that we don't know
Mhm.
that we don't realize that they don't know. And
Yes.
yeah, I 100% agree with that too. And a lot of this also ties into like that second circle, I guess, of my elevate and accelerate method of like connecting and nurturing. So a lot of
Mm,
it is just like how you're connecting it and how you're nurturing your clients too to kind of elevate their experience, their client experience that way. And
yeah.
again, to bring back the word accelerate too, to accelerate
Mm,
your client experience, to
mhm,
bring up your client experience, to bring up your business and accelerate
mhm.
your business. Like I was saying, shifting into, lower budget weddings and clients into more premium high-end luxury clients.
Mhm.
All doing all this on this back end, on the client experience, on the communication, all this is going to lead up to that.
Yeah.
It all kind of falls under there.
I love all of this so much. Thank you so much, Rachel. This was like so informative, so helpful. Thank you so much for coming on and like sharing all of these amazing nuggets of wisdom. I would love, I mean, we're gonna link everything for the show in the show notes, obviously, but I would love if to close out, you would let us know where everyone can find you on the internet.
Yes. Oh my gosh, it's been so fun. Like, so you and I could just talk for hours
Yes,
about
I
all the
know. I'm like,
things.
we'll have to talk again.
I love it all. Maybe part 2.
Yeah,
But
no,
yeah,
literally.
you can find me at Rachel Traxler on Instagram. I think a lot of the stuff is there, and then kind of you figure out what you need from there. So at Rachel Traxler on Instagram would be probably the best place.
Perfect. Okay, and we'll link all of that for you guys in the show notes as well. And Rachel, thank you so much for coming on. It was so lovely to have
So
you.
welcome. Yay, I'm excited.
All right, and thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we will see you next time.